With the new Ninja Turtles movie Mutant Mayhem dropping in theaters a few weekends ago, I figured what better time to talk about one of my favorite franchises growing up. So today I am going to rank all 7 Ninja Turtles movies that released in theaters. As always, be sure to leave me a comment down below here and let me know how you would rank the Ninja Turtle movies. And feel free to include a couple of the animated ones that I don't have on my list. But with all that being said, drop me that comment down below, let me know how you rank the movies, and let's kick some shell, dudes. Cowabunga.
Huh? Cowabunga!
But starting off my list here at number 7, the worst of the worst. You know it, you love it. Do the dance with me. So it had been a long time since I revisited this movie. I even remember as a kid loving the first 2, and this one being like the black sheep that just never did it for me, even as a kid. And upon rewatching this to make this ranking, somehow this movie is even worse than I remember. I just don't know what the hell they were doing. The concept here was pretty much, let's take everything you love about the first 2 movies, and let's just throw that in the toilet, because we're gonna tell a story about British colonizers in feudal Japan.
What your ass say?
And in all honesty, I was hoping to rewatch this movie as an adult and find some redeeming qualities about it, and there is really nothing I can say here. First and foremost, the Turtles look absolutely horrible in this movie. This was the first one without Jim Henson's team, and it definitely showed. This was almost like an uncanny valley of the first 2 Turtles. Like, they had these horrible liver spots all over their bodies. The puppets were super stiff, so nothing looked natural. Like, I think these turtle designs could probably make an appearance in the new Five Nights at Freddy's movies, and I don't think they would be out of place. And in addition to just the horrible look of the Turtles, this is also the first of the 3 movies where you don't really notice or you don't really get a sense of their different personalities. They don't really highlight Raph's temper, they don't highlight Donnie's brains, they're just kind of all 4 making the same jokes. And beyond the Turtles, this is hands down the worst that Splinter looked during the trilogy as well. Like the way they have him just moving around so stiff and his eyes are huge, it was painfully obvious that this was an animatronic. And it kind of just felt like he was this reject Chuck E. Cheese character, or Risky Rat for my Sunny fans. Now on paper, they did make one great decision of bringing back Casey Jones, but for some reason they turned him into just an adult babysitter. Like, instead of taking one of the best aspects of the first movie, Casey fighting alongside the Turtles, this is the way they went, and it was a decision.
Hated it.
This one just does not belong with the other 2. This is a horrible made-for-TV movie that was literally made just to sell toys of the Turtles in Shogun attire. A really weird story choice with not much turtle stuff in it, and just a really bad movie. Up next for me at number 6, what seems to be an unpopular opinion is gonna be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. And from what I'm gathering, people like this one more than the first?
Why?
I guess this tends to be regarded as a better made film than the first one, and obviously based on my ranking, I don't agree with that at all. Now, I will say the biggest issue with this movie is probably the fact that the first one exists. Because when they kind of got some of the backlash and criticism for the first one being a little bit too serious, in their defense, they did listen to the fans, but in my opinion, it was kind of an overcorrection the other way. So watching these back to back just really threw me for a loop. It's almost similar to like if you sat down and watched Batman Begins, and then after that you put in Batman Forever. Like, yeah, a lot of the same characters are in there, but this is a completely different movie. About the only thing I can say positive here is I like the Turtles a little bit more than in the first movie, and I thought Bebop and Rocksteady were pretty well executed. Where the first one was still silly with the Turtles, and with,
What's his name? What's his name? I got nothing on a name. Come on, baby, what's the name?
Will Arnett, the rest of the movie around it was pretty serious. And then they turned around and made this one that was just really goofy. There was this one scene real early in the movie that made me laugh, and not in a good way. But it's like when Megan Fox has to get closer to this guy, so she goes in with this group of cheerleaders, and there's just like this 2 to 3 minute sequence of her walking in slow motion and throwing on a little skirt for her cheerleader outfit. And it's like, Jesus, we get it. Megan Fox is attractive. I swear to God, Michael Bay does not know the word subtle exists, because his movies have zero of it. Beyond that, Casey Jones here is just god-awful. I've never seen Arrow. People tell me Stephen Amell's a good actor. I'm sure he is. But for me, this is the first time I saw him, and not a great first impression. And to be fair, a lot of that has to go on the writing team. Like, it's pretty painfully obvious that the people that wrote this movie have never watched a single minute of Casey Jones and the Turtles. The dialogue, awful. Without a doubt, in these two movies, Casey Jones has the worst dialogue of any character. I truly don't understand taking away screen time from Will Arnett for that. Baxter Stockman also played just a little too silly for me. Like, Tyler Perry really hammed it up. And sometimes when an actor does that, it really works for me.
I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!
Sometimes it does not. And then I know you're thinking, well, hey, at least Casey has his iconic hockey mask. That's pretty badass. Yeah, it was for one scene. A scene where you have Megan Fox as April taking out these trained assassins with a handbag, and you have Casey dropping a puck and taking out these foot soldiers from like 300 feet away. I was dying laughing during this moment because it just put me in mind of Uncle Buck. It really baffles me that people call this a better movie than the first one. Maybe that's because it just has familiar characters like Bebop and Rocksteady and Krang. I don't know what the reason is, but if you like this one more, let me know what worked down in the comments. Coming up next at number 5 is the aforementioned first Ninja Turtles movie from Michael Bay. And there were just a ton of really bizarre story choices for this movie. I am thankful that Michael Bay got a little feedback before releasing it, because this could have been even worse. Like, dude was literally gonna drop the Teenage Mutant and just make these alien Ninja Turtles.
Man, that sucks!
I really just don't like these turtles as like these walking 7-foot tanks. Like, at that point, the ninjutsu isn't really a requirement when they can just like go like this and destroy somebody. And then it all kind of snowballed from there because you couldn't have these normal foot soldiers against these tanks. It wouldn't be fair. So what they did instead is they made the Foot Clan like these militaristic people with these assault rifles. Another decision that I absolutely hated. You had this decision to make all the turtles April's pets when she was younger. Therefore, they always shared a connection. And then when the turtles are finally revealed, I do think they did a good job of capturing the personalities, but there's just something about them where they're not very charming. Like, I don't endear myself to these turtles the way I do most others. And one thing that might turn me off is that Michelangelo is so horny for April. Like, in the first half of the movie, it is non-stop.
Oh, she's so hot I can feel my shell tightening.
We can hear you.
If you were her pets, isn't she kinda your mom? Not cool, dude. As far as Megan Fox, I didn't love the casting then, I still don't love it now. She just never felt like an April O'Neil to me. More so, it just felt like Michael Bay forced her into this movie, because this was around the time of like Transformer movies being big, and just those kinds of action movies. So instead of taking this opportunity to make this feel like a solid, grounded Turtles movie, Michael Bay and his team were more worried about making a typical Hollywood like action movie. But to say a few things positive, the turtles do grow on you as the movie goes on. I think there's some really cool fight sequences, and Will Arnett as Vern absolutely saved this movie a little bit for me. He is probably the reason this goes above Out of the Shadows. Coming in next at number 4, and probably the biggest surprise of my rewatch, is gonna be the animated movie TMNT from 2007. And I just thought, if you're gonna tell a different kind of Ninja Turtle story, this was a really good way to do it, with like breaking up the band and then bringing them back together. If you're not familiar, this movie actually starts after the Shredder's been defeated. Kinda has this weird Lord of the Rings opening. So it opens after Shredder's been defeated, and you have Leo, who's training to be a leader. He's away from the other turtles. And you have April come over and kind of talk him into coming home, like that his brothers need him. And the turtles eventually coming together at the end, it feels earned, because it's not just like Leo comes home and one scene later, everything's wrapped up in a nice bow. Obviously, Mikey and Donatello are happy to see him because that's who they are, but Raph is really pissed at him. He feels like he abandoned his brothers. Now, Mikey and Donatello do take a bit of a backseat here, but to be fair, they kind of take a backseat in most Turtle movies. As much as people love the two of them, I think the more compelling narrative is always Raph versus Leo. And this movie might have done the best job at that out of any of these. This feels natural as to like where the Turtles would go without each other. Like, you have Leo off in Africa training to be a better leader. You have Raph in this costume, of course being a vigilante, because that's totally what Raph would do. As far as the villain side of things, it's pretty forgettable. The reason this ranks so high for me me is I just love the turtle story it's telling. Like this kind of broken family trying to get back together, Leo trying to come back in and lead his brothers that he cares about, but Raph understandably still having some feelings of resentment and kinda taking the lead himself. It's a strong story, it feels very earned when they finally do come together, and man, that battle between Leo and Raph is just chef's kiss.
You aren't ready! You're impatient and hot-tempered, and more importantly, I'm better than you.
Starting off my top 3, the New Kids on the Block, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. And I was absolutely shocked how much I really enjoyed this movie. I absolutely went into it having no expectations, because expectations usually lead to disappointment.
That's true.
But this was a really good time. The first thing that stood out to me is this unique animation style, which seems to be very love or hate right now. Personally, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like this hand-drawn 3D animation, where you can even see like the trace marks and stuff. And all the faces aren't like perfectly shaped, they're like you have these odd shapes to the human characters. So yeah, I liked it. But personally, I'm liking anything these days that isn't the normal Disney Pixar animation. I think this is the best they've ever done at putting the teenage into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because unlike the Michael Bay ones, these are characters that you endear yourselves to. For better or worse, these are teenagers, and you feel that on screen with like their chaotic energy and just all of them talking over one another. You know, they say some really funny stuff, but they're teenagers, so they're also kind of fucking annoying sometimes.
Look, we're really sorry, Splinter. Some of the guys wanted to get pizza and I tried to talk them out of it.
You ratted us out.
Hey, don't use that word that way.
This very much feels like they gave them all their personality traits, but maybe to a lesser degree because they're kids. Like, Raph isn't exactly angry yet, he just really likes fighting. Guys, it's not a problem.
Enough talk! I dream about fighting every night.
You've got a rage problem, right?
It's not a problem!
The comedy was great. There are some jokes that maybe with a generational gap, older audiences might not get everything, but to me, all of the jokes landed, and it was pretty consistently funny throughout the whole runtime. But on top of the Turtles themselves and the comedy, this was just a really cool version of the Turtles story. It's about these 4 kids under the sewer that just, they want a sense of community, they want to belong, they want friends and a social life. They just want the normal things that kids want.
What would you guys do?
Go to high school. Maybe get a girlfriend.
Can you imagine that?
Not likely.
And I thought that was a great story direction to take this movie to really endear us to these characters. Now, on the mixed or negative side, I didn't love this version of April. And before you come at me, I just personally never liked the younger take on April. There's just something about that and like her motive to be cool in high school. It just didn't really work for me. I have always enjoyed like more of an older April, more of like the cool aunt energy than her being the same age as them. And why does every Ninja Turtle movie have to have one of the turtles in love with April? Like, it made it extra awkward in this one because Leo and her are the same age. I think that should always be handled like the 1990 movie, where Mikey makes a few jokes and that's about the end of it. That's as far as that should go. Now, the movie absolutely lives up to its name. There are a ton of mutants in here, and while I think there are some great voice performances, it does feel a little sleazy to me in the sense of this gives me the same Batman and Robin or Turtles 3, where they just brought in all these mutants to sell toys, especially with Nickelodeon behind it. And then I also didn't love A, how easy all these mutants turned on Superfly, and B, just the whole third act of the movie. I felt like they were doing something wholly original with the first 2 acts. And then the finale of the movie was just kind of like this giant kaiju monster versus the Turtles. But I do love the Turtles. They very much feel like teenagers. Jackie Chan steals every scene he's in as Master Splinter. There's a ton of great comedic moments. And there's one thing that this franchise has been missing for a long time, and that's heart.
The heart, Osborn. First, we attack his heart.
Coming in as my runner-up at number 2 is gonna be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. Now, had you asked me through my entire childhood, and probably even my teenage years, this would easily be my number 1. To this day, if you go by a cumulative hours, this has to still be my most watched Turtles movie. This movie took everything from the first film and kind of made it a little more kid-friendly. They kind of upped the goofiness and silliness. You have Mikey fighting guys with sausages. You have Donnie like going up and down like one of those, whatever you call them. It's a fucking good time.
Combat Conquest!
The Turtles themselves here are just as charismatic and have the same chemistry from the first movie. But to me, this is just like the most fun. The most just like shut your brain off and have some laughs. Now, I definitely didn't like the April replacement as much as April from the first movie. I just thought she had a much better dynamic with the Turtles. And also, I am very much on Team Casey Jones over Team Kino, but he's still a good character. And of course, this movie has the one thing that 1990 doesn't. Vanilla Ice. Now, where it hasn't held up as well, just a few small things. Obviously, Toka and Razor are like knockoff Wish versions of Bebop and Rocksteady. You don't really get a proper fight in here between the Turtles and Shredder. They kind of take them out with the power of the keytar. So kind of anticlimactic there. I was hoping for another showdown like the first movie. So, of course, by process of elimination, number one for me is gonna be the first movie that did it, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1990. Also, maybe a slight bias because that's the year I was born. To me, this will always be the perfect Ninja Turtles movie. It's just that perfect blend of the goofy silliness of the cartoon with the comics. It's a movie that constantly makes you laugh, but it actually has a ton of heart to it, makes you emotional a few times. To this day, Splinter talking to the Turtles at the fire still gets me emotional, because that is quite literally a father's dying words to his sons. Like, in Splinter's mind, he's never gonna see them again. And the way the scene is executed is just, it's beautiful. The film wastes absolutely no time getting to the Turtles. You see them very quickly in the movie, and right away you can see the chemistry between them. You can see how much they love each other, how much fun they have. Well, and then there's Raph. This is, of course, also the introduction to Elias Cotius as Casey Jones, an actor and a performance that I thought was perfect for this movie. Really wish Casey would have been in the second one as well.
Now, you know, a little Primatine might just help clear that up there.
You have my favorite version of April. You have the best Shredder. There's not even a debate. Like, when I think of Shredder in my mind, this is who I see. And man, just beginning to end, aside from some cheese, you know, there's definitely some late 80s, early 90s cheese here. But overall, this is just a great movie for kids, a great movie for adults and fans of Ninja Turtles. Has a strong message to it. It knows when to make you laugh. It knows when to make you emotional. These first two movies are my favorite version of Splinter. Like, every scene he's in, the dude's saying something super profound. Everything on the farm is great. Seeing that bond between Leo and Raph, like how Leo won't leave his side when he's hurt. Oh, another moment that just gets me. And then, of course, a badass showdown between the Turtles and Shredder at the end of the movie. Hey Casey, can you flip that for me real quick? Oops! But that's gonna do it for my ranking of all 7 theatrically released Ninja Turtles movie. As always, let me know down in the comments below how you would rank these movies, and more importantly, who is your favorite Ninja Turtle? While I have you, me and 2 friends do a weekly pop culture podcast called Culture Shocked. We actually just did a full episode on the Turtles movies a few weeks ago. So if you enjoy podcasts, or you just have a long commute to work, link will be down in the description. Give us a listen, let me know what you think. As always, if you enjoyed this, please consider giving it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe right over here so you don't miss any future content. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.